Hello folks, this is David Liddell here. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar. This is the Leadership Success Navigator series. This is webinar 1, the series of 4, so I welcome everybody here. I'm the founder and CEO of SKYE Business Solutions. For those of you who know us, know who we are, and those of you who don't, just a reminder to those who don't, we are a leadership development company, and we focus on executive coaching, leadership development training, as well as strategic planning. Today's webinar is the same webinar series we've been running for the last year or so. It's a series of 4. This is our 3rd time running it. The good news is we've updated it. There's new content. So for anyone who's repeating, you're going to see some new elements to this program. What I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about how we came about building this particular webinar. And where it came from was from a number of conversations with my clients over the years and individuals who are looking to become better leaders. Essentially, it came from those people saying, how do I become a great leader? How do I turn around my leadership capability? How do I accelerate my ability to be a transformational and influential leader? And the answer is there isn't a fast way. However, I think we'd all have that. If I had the magic pill, I'd be very, very wealthy right now. But ideally, people still want that formula. So what I've done is I've created this webinar series, and this is what I feel is a fundamental formula for success, and I'd like to share it with you. And I encourage you to ask other people to participate. It's once a month. Each webinar runs about 60 minutes, so we do have a hard stop in about 55 minutes. We do that intentionally. Busy people like yourselves, you get a long day, and I know carving out an hour is easy. Beyond that, it's tough, so we try to keep it short and sweet. This will be held monthly, so in a moment you'll see some dates here for webinars 2, 3, and 4. Hopefully everybody has downloaded the worksheet for webinar 1, and this worksheet is something that you will follow along with as part of this effort. What I want you to do is learn. I want you to be able to apply the learning as well, and that's why the worksheet comes into play. So I'll be asking a few questions, and I'll give you a few moments to answer these questions as we go. The first 45 minutes will be, roughly first 40, 50 minutes will be the webinar content itself, but then we're also going to take questions at the end, and the questions will come in the form of you typing into the chat area or question area, and we'll be sure we field those questions at the end. We will also make this webinar available to everybody online. It's going to be recorded, and it will be put up online so you can review it. It'll be also there as an audio recording, which you can download. We'll have the presentation itself and the worksheet. So everything will be made available to you, and I'm hopeful you can continue on with us for the upcoming webinars as well. So let's continue forward here. So the webinar series. This is the overview. It's the first webinar today is a framework for leadership success, and this is all about how you need to think as a leader. In October, we are going to move on to your value and what you want to achieve, and I say why you exist has everything to do with your value. In November, we will talk about how you get there. What's your pathway to success as a leader? And then, of course, one of the most important things you can do as a leader is communicate and get everybody else on board, the people around you, those who report to you, those around you, but you have to get everyone on board and bought into your plan. So it's about communication and an effective execution. How you'll benefit from this? Well, I think some of it is already pretty easy to understand here, but I want you to think about this as an exercise in applying it to your real world experience. There's thousands of books on leadership, thousands of books that you could certainly read, but it really comes down to how well you're applying the principles. So we're going to ensure that we do some of that today. It's going to help you by learning and growing professionally, provided you put the effort into it. And of course, since you're on the phone, I'm sure that's the case. I want you to reach your full potential as a leader, and that has everything to do with how you make that happen. And then it will also improve your personal success as well as drive your business results. So these are some clear benefits that will come out of this. I mentioned we've done this. This will be our 3rd time running the actual series. I've had great feedback, but of course we're always trying to improve it as we go. So here are the topics for today. these are things we will be talking about under the general heading of a framework for leadership success. Is first of all, keeping the big picture in mind. People as leaders have to think about their leadership abilities in the context of what's going around them, the business, the marketplace, competition. So we're going to talk about that. It also has a lot to do with how well you build business relationships. So that is trust. You want to make sure that your outcomes define your pathway. What that means is I want you to think in the context of results. Leading, managing is a very powerful tool. It's about managing the business and leading the people. But what's most important as leaders is to ensure that you've got a strong focus on outcomes and results. If you build an environment where people can thrive, can grow, and do the best job possible, as it relates to results, that is the better environment rather than the converse, which is a micromanaged environment. A big piece of this is your team. The people around you need direction and focus, and that comes from you as a leader. And then communication, I call it the secret sauce. We'll talk more about that, but how effective you are as a leader has probably more to do with your ability to communicate in a way that people understand you, see your abilities, and how they connect with you on a personal level. So we'll talk about all of those. So let's go to the first topic here. And, I talk about the 5 roles of leadership. If anyone has been introduced to any of the materials and the content we use, one of the big pieces is for framing your thought process as a leader is to think about how you function in the workplace as a leader. I mentioned a moment ago, manage the business, lead the people. People don't want to be managed. They do want to be led. But there are 5 distinct roles. And you'll notice here that on the left-hand side of the sheet here, we have working in your business, which is the technician and the manager role. The technician is the reason why you were promoted at what you were doing. You were essentially the doer. You do the technical work. You solve many of the problems. Technicians control the work. So, and I'm using the term technician in a generic sense. So, for instance, if someone in the accounting department wanted to eventually become the manager of the accounting department, the function of accounting principles, that's the technical work. Managing and leading a department of accountants would be more about managing and leading in that context, which takes me over to manager. Well, what the manager does, the manager controls the flow of work. It's a lot about planning. It's all about managing how well others are doing, setting expectation. Those are the things managers do in an organization to ensure the organization runs well. Are we tracking progress? Are we tracking success? So that's really about managing the business. Yes, there are people in the equation, but you have to think about it in 2 separate components and then blending them together. So when you think about the technician role and the manager role as a leader, that is working in the business. And working in the business is very important. It's the active day-to-day stuff. Sometimes it can become overwhelming, and that's where leaders have to decide how they're going to spend their time. Working too much in the business means you're stuck in the day-to-day. You're managing too much activity. You might be solving all the problems. I also call it the vortex. Oftentimes, at the end of the day, you're burnt out. You've tried to manage your team. You've tried to manage your group, and it just becomes so overwhelming, putting out fires, dealing with all the activity that comes at you constantly. That's working in your business, and you need to do some of it. But what leaders and good leaders will do, and especially as you move up into the higher ranks of the organization, you need to work on your business. Working in the business is day-to-day, making it happen, getting it done. On the business is looking at it in a way that helps you understand, are there a better way? How do I help my people grow? How do I help the business improve? What does the future look like? So let's look at the 3, the coach, the trailblazer, and the architect. The coach develops people. The coach is the hat you wear or the element of leadership that you use to help build a strong and thriving environment through good communication, looking at the human dynamic, making sure your team is working well. The architect looks at how things function, looking at the technical systems, the social systems, looking at how people think. The architect is also, very good at looking at the long-term perspective. What does it need to look like next year and the year after? But everything the architect does is how can we make this run more effectively? And then the trailblazer is the visionary. The one that looks at change. What's coming at us? What's the marketplace looking like? How do we have to adapt? What if we do these things? What if we don't do those sorts of things? Now, what's interesting about this is these are not separate responsibilities. These are all the different roles that strong leaders utilize in their day-to-day. And we've broken it down by working on and in your business to help you understand that you need to focus some of your time and some of your energy on working on the business, because there's always a way to improve what you're doing, to help people improve, to look forward, to look into the future. What I found my experience has been with many, and I'm going to say most leaders, is they don't have a filter or a framework to think through that helps them understand what a good influential and strong leader looks like. This is a great framework. Now, when we train leaders in classroom, we go into much more detail. But what I'd like you to think about is your situation and your environment and how you might want to be spending your time more effectively, so that you are spending time working with people, looking at the future, innovating, better ways of running your business. If you work on your business to improve it, it makes it better for the people around you. Your team thrives, it grows. Good contributors become great contributors. Those who are lagging behind find better ways of doing things themselves. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and I'm going to give you about 30 seconds or so, I want you to pull out your worksheet, and question A, it says, keep the big picture in mind and be clear as your role as a leader, the 5 roles of leadership. And you'll notice there are 3 pie charts there. There's an example, a today's situation, and a future situation. And what I'm asking you to do is you can look at the example to see how that pie is broken down, knowing that you don't want to look at it over the course of the day, but if you think about a week, a month, over the course of the year, how well are you utilizing your time and energies as a leader using these 5 leadership roles? So what I'd like you to do is take the today pie chart and draw a pie chart today in terms of how you see how much of your time goes into being a technician, a manager, a coach, a trailblazer, and an architect. Look at it today. And if you want to be more effective, then what does it need to look like in the future? Now, the future for you could be 3 months, 6 months, a year. You have to decide. But think about what needs to occur to make that happen. And that's the second question. List one change in your leadership behavior that needs to occur to move in this direction. So I'll give you about 30 or 40 seconds. Please fill out the worksheet, question A. About another 10 seconds. I'll give you another 5 seconds. Okay, so hopefully everybody has something on paper here. I know I don't give you a lot of time, but we've only got a 60-minute window here. This is something you can think about later as well. If you're struggling a little bit in terms of what these different definitions are, please feel free to reach out, contact me, and I can help you further. But don't underestimate how important this model can work for you. We've taught hundreds and thousands of leaders on this model, and it does provide a very interesting and thoughtful approach to what it means to be a truly effective leader in your business. So let's go to the next part, trust, building trust as a leader. If anyone's read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you'll know how important trust really is in the organization. And effective leaders and those who are truly influential in an organization work hard on building strong business relationships. Now, if anyone's on the line and thinks trust is a touchy-feely word, it's really not. Trust is the basis of how well we interact with others, how well others support us, what it means to be influential either in a meeting, sharing your ideas. It's absolutely critical, and we break it down into 3 pieces. And the definitions are on the slide right here. Integrity is acting from a set of guiding principles, and that really has everything to do with who you are, your values, principles that the organization lives by. Simple things, leading by example yourself, or following through on what you've said you'll do. The second one is competence, fulfilling your role as a leader, and that is, and I know everyone on the line probably has a deep domain expertise in your particular area, whether you're an accountant or you're an engineer or a technician in some particular area of the business. But the competence as a leader is particularly important. Do people see you as a leader? Do you carry yourself as a leader? Do you set the right example for others in the organization? Do you provide direction? Are you delegating effectively? These are all fundamentals of what leadership really means. And then, of course, compassion. It's caring about the needs of others. And caring about the needs of others doesn't mean you have to be buddy-buddy with anybody. What it means is you have to see individuals in your organization, your employees, as individuals, as people with needs, wants, desires, understanding what motivates them, what drives them, taking an interest in their career and their professional development. That's showing compassion, that caring about what they need. If your employees and others around you feel as though you have their best interest at heart in the context of what's best for the business, you're going to do very well. So here's kind of a good news, bad news related to these 3 areas. You can do very well in all areas, and you can do poorly in areas. There is every opportunity, every interaction you have with people around you is an opportunity to build trust. The unfortunate piece is if you don't follow through, if you're not consistent in certain areas, you're also degrading the trust. And for anyone on the line who's read Covey's book, they talk about the emotional bank account or the trust bank account. Trust doesn't erode rapidly unless you do something crazy, but it can erode slowly over time, which means it takes time to build it back up. So your goal as a leader is to ensure that the strength of your relationships is far beyond what any challenge might come up. I mean, people make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. You have to consistently think about, how do I build relationships? How do I build trust with the people around me? How do I ensure my employees see me as the leader they need me to be? So let's take a moment here, if you wouldn't mind looking again at your worksheet. And item B talks about trust. And I would like you to list which of these areas you're strongest in. And I know this is not a scientific study, but be honest with yourself, you're the only one who's going to be reviewing this. Which area are you strongest in? And then which area might you be weakest in? And then if you can choose one thing, and again, it comes down to your behavior, it's what you say is important, what you do is even more important. So that's why I say your behavior. What is it you should do to improve? I'll give you about 30 or 40 seconds. Go ahead. Another 10 seconds or so. Okay, good. Hopefully you've got a couple things there that you can use to assist yourself in your professional development. I think what you'll find as you look at particular relationships, business relationships that you have, it really comes down to one relationship at a time. And as you focus on building strong trust in relationships, you can almost overcome any challenge, no matter how difficult the problem is. But if you have weak business relationships, lacking trust, it's very difficult, very, very difficult to deal with conflict, different ideas. It's more difficult to challenge people. It's more difficult to hold people accountable. The bottom line, it comes down to, do people trust you as a leader? All right, hopefully some of this is absorbing. So let's go to the next topic here. It's focusing on outcomes. I talked about that earlier. And I say not activity. It doesn't mean I'm being a little over the top with that. It doesn't mean you shouldn't focus on any activity. But what I'm encouraging everybody to do is to think about, what is it we are trying to achieve? Whether you're trying to achieve it as a company, as a team within a company, a department within a company, or even if you're trying to set expectations for individuals on your team, you have to think about outcomes. Micromanagers manage activity, and leaders focus on outcomes and build an environment where people can thrive and grow. And obviously, you need process and systems in the organization, but you want to focus on the outcomes. Are my people, is my team achieving the desired outcomes? And that's always the question. If you're not achieving the desired outcomes, then you may want to look at activity to see what's happening. Does something need to be fixed or repaired? But when I say focus on activity, you have to think about, what are we trying to achieve? Now I'm using the balanced scorecard here, and there are 4 elements of the balanced scorecard, and I'm simplifying this a little bit, but I'm sure you'll understand. You'll notice do we have satisfied customers? You have to have measures of success, measures of outcomes related to customer satisfaction. And things like, are we delivering on time? Do we have the right quality? Is our pricing competitive? That's what your customers care about. Your company culture, which is internal, and this is the experience for people within your organization, specifically your employees. Do they feel engaged? Are you retaining the best talent in the organization? Are people growing professionally? If you think about succession planning today, the big piece of it is, well, we need to identify people, but you also have to help them grow. So these are outcomes of what happens in an organization. Your internal operations, it's everything in terms of how you deliver value to the customer. And you'll think about things like efficiency, possibly reducing costs in the organization in different areas, production, throughput, depending what type of company you are. Your internal operations, your measures of success, your outcomes will be different. And of course, on the financial side, you've got to have sales. You have to have revenue, you have to have profit, and everything that relates to the financial health of the business. So with that in mind, what I'd like you to think about, and this will now take you to the third item, item C on the worksheet, is I would like you to think about how well you're doing at measuring the success of your area or your team. I don't care if it's just you, even if how well do you measure your own success? A big piece of this is identifying what success looks like, and this relates to expectations. Oftentimes, teams or people don't succeed because they're not clear on what they're meant to accomplish, and that's what this does. It forces you to think through. It could be in all 4 areas, depending how big your group is. It could be one area. I mean, you might be a customer-facing group, and you're going to put the most emphasis on customer satisfaction. But I don't want you to leave any of these out. I want you to think about all 4. And then I'd like you to list just the top 3 measures of success for you and your team. And think about this. At the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year, these are the top 3 things that you can say, yes, we were successful. No, we didn't reach the level of success we wanted. but it tells you to what degree you've achieved the outcomes that you wanted to achieve and how much success you have had. All right, so I'll give you a few minutes. I'll give you a few seconds to look through that, another 40 seconds or so. Please take a few, please think about it and write down 3 of the things that are the top 3 measures of how you determine success. Go. And just a little bit more time. All right, so hopefully you have 3 measures of success, and the reason they're called measures, it means they are measurable. You don't want something that's ambiguous or difficult to measure. You don't want a broad, overarching goal. Those are important, but that's not what this particular part of the exercise is about. This is about identifying clear measures of success that you can look at any given point in time, and it'll tell you, yes, we're getting the job done. And it serves, I mean, we help companies do these sorts of things. We help teams do these sorts of things, and even individuals. And I'll tell you, if you can do that for your team and connect your employees to this as well, each individual employee, it gives them a clear picture for themselves of how their contribution will matter in the bigger picture, because that's really what most employees they want. They want to understand, how do I fit? All right, so we'll continue along here onto the 4th item. And by the way, I'm going to recap all these points at the end and pull this all together to give you a sense of how this works. But keep in mind, this is webinar 1. This is giving you a framework for thinking. As we get into webinars 2, 3, and 4, we're going to be drilling down deeper and deeper and deeper into all these areas. So let's look at building employee consensus. You might think, well, wait a minute. Now, I'm the leader. Shouldn't it be what I say goes? And the answer is, well, to a degree. But what's most important is that you get people in the organization, your team, your employees, people around you who support your group. If you think about the value stream of your company, other departments support your group. Get them on board with you. Tell them where you're going, what you're trying to achieve, and how you're trying to achieve it. And you'll get people more excited, more interested, more engaged, making better decisions along the way. I mean, think about how many decisions you have to make in a day. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could share that responsibility with others, so that, 1, you can spend more time on working on your business, as I mentioned earlier. 2, your organization is more agile, and it leads to longer-term sustainable success. So let's look at each area. Strategic, the plans. What is your plan? Do you have a plan? You would be surprised at how many organizations don't have a plan. Now, this doesn't have to be a 25-page, super detailed, super fine print plan, but this just has to be a plan that tells your people, what are we trying to achieve? What are the outcomes we want to do? How are we going to get there? Who's going to be involved? Who's responsible for what? And a plan that allows the organization to measure their progress along the way. We're almost near the end of this calendar year. Well, actually, we're in the last quarter, or very close to the last quarter. It's going to go by like that. You know how critical it is to be ahead of the curve on all matters related to planning, development, growth, competition, collaboration, all very important. So you want to get people on board with your plan. Secondly is, okay, how are we going to do that? What are the practices? What are our best practices? Operationally, how do we do this? What sort of talent do we need? Do we have the right processes in place? Do we have the right systems? Do we have the technology to support us? And you might think, well, no, we've been in business for years and years. Why would we change? Well, the reason is why you want to look at it every year, at least to look at it and get people on the same page, is 1, your players change. Your Your employees will change. The landscape, the world around you is changing. If you don't want to remain complacent to think that what you did in the past is going to help you move forward. So let's make sure that you're looking at your practices, your systems, your processes. And then, of course, the final piece is the organization, the people. The best organizations in the world have a combination, a strong combination of these three items: strategic, operational, and organizational. However, without the people, that you really can't get it done. I've seen organizations with mediocre practices and great people overcome the challenges. They bust through the adversity. They go around the process, through the process, to make it happen, to please the customer, to make sure the plan is executed effectively. But it's I don't care how good your practices are, if you don't have good people behind you, and good doesn't mean they're all geniuses. What it means, these are people who care about your business, are capable at what they do, have a good fit to the job that they're in, have the right attitude, and everything else that goes with it. So if you think about consensus, which resides in the middle of all these, consensus, and I have the definition up there for a reason. Not everybody on your team is going to agree with where you want to go 100% of the time. It's just not going to happen. Your job as a leader is to get people in consensus to support your plan, to support delivering operationally, to make sure people are working collaboratively in the best interest of the organization. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an opportunity here now to think about item D on your worksheet, and it's building consensus with your team and a focus on results. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank the consensus within your team related to your strategic direction, key objectives, and success measures? What needs to change to improve this ranking? Okay, so think about what's written here under item D. Think about strategic, operational, organizational, and I'll give you 40 seconds to write down your thoughts. Go ahead. Another 10 seconds. Okay, so hopefully you've got some thoughts and ideas here related to the consensus within your organization. Very critical. Don't assume for a minute that everyone's on the same page with you. It's better to ask. It's better to think about it. I know in your company meetings, your team meetings, it's usually about the operation, the daily operation of the business. How are we doing? Very important. But you also want to think about the plans, the direction. Are people on the same page? Do you have the collaboration, the communication needed? These are some things that, as you talk about those, you'll really truly understand how strong the consensus is in terms of the direction you've set. And what's very helpful here is setting the direction with your team. All right, so let's talk about influential communication. And you know, if I have some leadership aficionados on the phone with us today, I would bet you believe and understand how influence is the #1 differentiator between being a good leader and a great leader is your ability to influence others around you. And I've got a three-pronged or kind of the the three-legged stool approach here, and I want to talk about each one of these to share with you what it means to be influential. If you are influential, people are listening, and you demonstrate your influence through your actions, obviously your words, but more to do with your actions. So let's talk about each one of these. The first one, direction, lead with a clear message. That has to be one of the areas that I find in most organizations when there are challenges with teams, people, ability to execute, achieving results. Oftentimes it starts with the message was not clear. What's expected of me? What's expected of the team? How are we going to measure success? What is the plan moving forward? How are we going to do it? What's in our way? What are the challenges? These are questions people have every day. Your employees have their head down. They're working hard. They want to please you. They want to contribute to the company. But as you move forward, and you will shift your strategy, shift direction to accommodate what's going on around you, the marketplace, competition. The message in terms of where you're going is very critical, and it keeps people focused on doing the right thing. So influence starts with, are you clear? Are you crystal clear? Are you asking enough questions to ensure you know people are clear? And this is not interrogating people, but this is making sure they understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. The second piece is engagement. Now, that's not your engagement. We know you're engaged, but are you engaging others? Are you creating an environment where people's opinions, opinions, ideas matter? And part of this is listening to learn and understand where are people coming from, what are their ideas, what are their concerns, where are they having troubles, what help do they need? And if you take a moment, just to take a moment and think about one person in your organization who's truly a good listener. Think of that person and think about some of the characteristics they demonstrate as a good listener, and match yourself up against that individual. Do I listen that well? Do I make the person in front of me feel like they're the most important person right now to me? And listening to learn and understand does take a little longer. It requires you to stop what you're doing, give 100% of your attention to that person, and you build a massive amount of influence with that one person. Leadership is one person at a time. You can get up and be a great speaker, a great orator, and all those sorts of things. That's great. But leadership is personal. So listen to learn, what do people care about, what motivates them, what challenges are they facing, how can you help them, and you'll keep them engaged. And I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version of engagement, but I think you're understanding. And then finally, leadership. And leadership in the context of influence is, are you setting the right example? You have great expectations for the people around you, which is wonderful. If you've done a great job of setting expectation, engaging them in the organization, they will run through brick walls for you if you truly set the right example for them. And that's that's getting your hands dirty at times. It's getting involved in areas where you need to be involved, to dig deep, to help solve problems, or to get out of the way when you're really you're an impediment to the problem solving. People want leaders to lead and then get out of the way and allow people to thrive and grow and exercise their own abilities. Great leaders set examples by coaching others, treating others with respect, thinking in a strategic way, and helping people around them grow and grow professionally themselves. I mean, there's a variety of examples. If you take a leader that you admire in your lifetime and think about their characteristics, well, that's setting the right example for you. So if you think about influence and communicating influentially, you'll notice a big piece of this, or a smaller piece of this, is actually you talking and sharing. You've got to provide the direction, but more of it's about listening and setting the right example through your actions, through your leadership behavior. So I'm going to give you a chance here to think about yourself and your leadership abilities related to communication influence. And I'll have you go over to your worksheet, and it says communicate to influence. How well are you communicating the strategic direction? the objectives, success measures to your team, your department. How well are you engaged? Meaning, or pardon me, how well are you engaging people in your organization? Are you listening? Are you understanding? Are you valuing people as people? Are you demonstrating the right behavior? So I want you to take a moment. I want you to pick one area that you'd like to improve in. I'm sure those of you who are humble on the line saying, well, there's all sorts of areas I want to focus on. I don't want you to focus on too many. Pick one area that you could focus on that would help you improve your influential communication abilities. And also list, what is it that you need to do specifically that will help you adjust? 40 seconds, go ahead. I have another 10 seconds. All right. So I'm going to do a summary here, but I want to just pause for a moment, and I want to talk about this worksheet. The reason why I have you jot down some notes, it's not for me. I'm not going to see it. It's not for your boss, and it's not for your employees. It's for you. And now you can share it with anybody you want, but ideally, what you want to do is you want to look at these 5 questions that you've provided input on. This is input about yourself, what you think of yourself, where you want to improve. And I want you coming out of this, I want you to think about this as an assignment for yourself. You got online, you're going to, once we're done, you'll have spent an hour. This is an investment in your professional development and your ability to be a stronger and more capable leader. I want you to think about that as you walk away with this worksheet. Say, now, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with this information about yourself, and how are you going to put it into action? Because adjusting your approach, learning to become a more powerful and more capable leader is not a light switch approach. It's a journey, and we should all be thinking about, how can I get better every single day? Well, you've got 5 things right in front of you. Pick 1, pick 2. If you're going to be bold, pick all 5. Work on them, but work at them consistently. But I would suggest only working at 2 or 3 at a time. So let me wrap this up. Let me frame today's conversation, and then we will do a little question and answer. If you're thinking about questions, please jot them into the chat field or into the question field. Send them in. We'll make sure we get them addressed. So first and foremost, lead with purpose. And what that truly comes down to is making sure, as an individual, as a leader, pardon me, not as an individual, but as a leader in an organization, you know why you're doing what you're doing relative to working on and working in your business. You've got to think about, you have to have an impact beyond managing the day-to-day and beyond your strength and capability as a technician in your business. You also have to think about, how do we improve it? How do I improve the human dynamic? How do I make my team stronger? What do I have to be thinking about as I look into the future? What is my crystal ball telling me? What is the marketplace doing? So the working on versus working in is absolutely critical, and the framework of the 5 roles gives you that purpose. It helps you understand what adjustments you need to make. You absolutely have to build trust as a leader. Trust is critical. Trust and respect is driven through how well you communicate. And if you're a good, strong communicator and you're thinking about people, your employees, as humans with needs, wants, desires, that trust is going to grow. And as that builds, so does your relationship. And trust begets trust. As you trust people, they become more trustworthy, and it works in 2 directions. absolutely critical. If it'd be great to say, hey, I'm a leader in a company, but if you turn around and nobody's there, does that really mean you're a leader? You can answer that question yourself. Focusing on outcomes and results, massive. Take that one and run with it. When I say people don't want to be managed, they don't. They don't want a micromanager. And I know at times you do have to be a micromanager if things aren't going well. But those of you who are on the phone who like to control and control people and situations, the hardest thing for you will be to step back and say, okay, I'm going to focus on the outcome. I'm going to focus on the result. I'm going to give people the opportunity to make some mistakes, not fatal, but I'm going to allow them to grow. And that's where focusing on the outcomes and results is critical. You keep your eye on the right things, coach people, set up the environment where people can thrive and grow, and good things will happen. And then build, item 4, build employee consensus. You can't do it alone. It's pretty straightforward. For those leaders who think they can, and I've met many of them along the way, they're the ones that are going, or look like they're going 800 miles an hour with their hair on fire, and they don't have enough time in the day even to have lunch. Look, if you can get a team of people to surround you, to get them to be focused on the same things you're focused on, to believe in what you're doing, the world becomes easier. Not easy, but easier. Your job becomes far easier, and your ability to adapt to what's going on around you, whether it's change, shift in focus, shift in outcomes. If your employees are with you, if they're engaged, you're going to be in great shape. And the last one is you've got to be an influential communicator. I won't say too much more there. You understand why. Influence in itself is not telling. It's showing, it's demonstrating, is giving people the opportunity to see what you want to achieve and getting them on board with you. All right, so hopefully that does it for today. I do want to wrap up with a few questions. I have a few here, but
can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Do you have a few questions there, Chip?
Yeah, I just so I couldn't figure out how to get my unmute done at the beginning of the call.
Oh,
but I've
no
been
problem.
Sitting here looking at some of the questions that are coming in. We actually have 2 or 3 of them here. The first one is from Ted, and it says, how broad throughout the organization should a leader socialize the strategic and operational plans and goals when they're in the process of building them?
Well, how broad? How broad without? I think what you have to think about is the value stream of your organization, meaning how your company delivers value to the customer. That's where I'd start, and how your function, your team, how it fits in. As you're building plans, as you're building your plan, you're defining goals. I think at a very high level, you have to have that established first. And then some of the operational aspects as it touches the different departments, people who support you. It's not a cut and dried answer because every organization is a little different. I think you have to use a little judgment in how you see, how broad or broad reaching your goals are in the organization. And that will tell you how far you have to reach out. As you're building, I think you do have to be cautious a little bit there to be sure that you don't get too far beyond, I think, let me back up from that. I think what you have to be careful of truly is making sure that you are confident and consistent and clear with your message on what the goals and objectives are as you're moving forward in the process, so that you don't end up having to adjust or reshape your goals too often. So let's just recap that answer with understand where you fit in the organization. Think about it in terms of the value stream and how far out that you reach. As soon as you have an understanding of what your goals and objectives are, you want to share that as broadly as you can, meaning is it meaningful to those people who will be involved? And part of that is a function of where you fit into the hierarchical aspect of how high a leader are you in the company, and then ensuring that operationally if there are any sub-elements, goals, objectives, measures that go with that, that you deal with those on a department or person-by-person basis. Hopefully I answered that question well. I might have been missing a little of the context.
Yeah. Great. Well, no, he answered a great answer, very helpful. Okay, next question was, what are the risks of not finding the right balance between the 5 leadership roles?
That one is that one's straightforward. The biggest risk there is that you become the roadblock in the organization. You become the bottleneck. Even some of the most successful leaders I've run into and worked with and coached, what they've realized is they're still spending far too much time working in their business, the technician and manager piece, and they've, by their own actions, limited the capability of either their team or part of the organization because too much of the activity, too many of the decisions flow through the particular leader rather than letting people make the decisions, unleashing the capability, the full potential of the people around you. And that's what working on the business does. It expands your reach, it expands your capability, it unlocks potential in the organization. It allows you to scale more rapidly. So not finding the right balance will absolutely limit your ability as a leader.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Well, it looks like based on time we have time for maybe one more question, and this is regarding building employee consensus. How do you handle people who aren't willing to get on board with the program?
Now, I know some people are probably thinking, well, just fire them, and I would say don't do that. We don't want to fire people. That's the last resort, and I always tell leaders, look at yourself first. Look at have you set up the right environment, and if people aren't getting on board, what you need to do with those people is ensure. Let's start with have you been clear? Have you set the right expectations? You have to really question yourself first. Have I done what's right? Have I set up the right environment? Have I been clear with this person? Do I understand what motivates them? Consensus has a lot to do with people's values, what interests them, what excites them or motivates them. And so let's make sure that you've done everything you can in terms of understanding people and connecting them to the program, to the plan, to where you're going. Now, if that doesn't happen, okay, if you truly believe that you've done everything you can to set this person up for success and to get them on board, then at that point there will come a time when you have to understand or have a conversation. You have to have a difficult conversation. And for those of you on the phone who are risk adverse, having that difficult conversation is not easy. But it makes a lot more sense to sit down with an individual and have a true heart-to-heart conversation. And it's hard to have those conversations if you don't have a high level of trust. But truly understand, where are the disconnects? Why is it that why is it that you're not seeing where we're going? Do you disagree? Do you have a fundamental issue? And it's going to come down to one or two things. They're either not capable or they're not willing to come along. And most often is they're not willing for a reason that is personal to them, whether it's lack of interest, lack of focus. It could be it's just not an area they want to head to. Well, if you have just one person not on board, that's the weak link. So you've really got to put it in your mind. No, I've got to have this conversation. I've got to hit it head on. I've got to look at the behaviors and the actions I see from this person and have a serious discussion about what's happening and what impact it's having on the organization and the implications, the consequences that on the organization, yourself, the individual. And really, you have to nip it in the bud. But I always start with, have you done everything that you need to do first as the leader? So do it in that order. All right, anything else, or is that it?
That was it on here. I noticed that we're right at the 2 o'clock hour or 3 o'clock, wherever if you're on the East Coast. And so it's an outstanding information, wonderful information. I appreciate the webinar today. When is our next one?
The next one is being held, let me just get my piece of, I talked about those in the beginning here. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to go right back to the beginning of got them right here. Okay, October 16th. We always have them. We try to have them on a Thursday, always at 2 o'clock. And we try to keep them crisp to 60 minutes, which we're right on here. So I look forward to hearing from everybody. Don't forget, we will have this information. We'll have the recording up online in the next 24 to 48 hours. We do like to put something into that's of high quality, so it takes us a couple days to pull together. We'll have the presentation available for download, the worksheet available for download, and even the audio. If you want to put it on your phone and listen to it in the car, you can do it that way as well. So we try to keep that real. But I hope to hear from everyone in October, and do share this. This is not, we don't charge for this. This is a give back to our community. So please do share it.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to everybody that attended today's call, and hopefully we'll see each and every one of you on October 16th.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.